and I am your presenter today. We'd like to welcome you to our first of our three-part webinar series called Creating Supportive Food Environments in Saskatchewan Sport and Recreation Settings. Part 2 is scheduled for November 13th, and Part 3 is scheduled for December 11th. So we encourage you to return and also participate in those webinars. The details can be found on SPRA's website. So today's webinar is scheduled for about 1 hour, and it is being recorded. So the recording and the slide deck, I'm just getting some feedback. Make sure I can mute everybody again. Okay, so today's webinar and the recording of today's webinar and the slide deck will be accessible on SPRA's Eat Healthy, Play Healthy website in the future. So you will be able to access it thereafter today or in the next few weeks. And we hope to end today with a 15-minute Q&A period. And we do have some of our other partners on the line participating today, so I'll be sure to unmute our partners so we can all participate in answering the questions. If you want access to the two healthy foods for my recreation setting resources that we're going to go through today, you can access them online. Catherine's graciously put the web link into the chat box feature of your WebEx application, so you can access it there, or you can do a quick Google search. But you're also just invited to follow along if you prefer and access them after the webinar. So Catherine Ebermetz is my colleague. She's also a public health nutritionist with the Saskatchewan Health Authority, and she's going to help to facilitate the content and any of the questions posted in the chat box today. And in order to reduce any background noise for you, I am just muting all participants, and then we'll unmute our partners for the last part of the webinar today. Okay, so our partners, we are a multi-sectoral committee who includes partners from both the health and recreation sectors and who represent the areas of research, policy, and practice. And so thanks to all those partners for helping be where we are today and in helping to develop this presentation. So partners include representatives from the University of Saskatchewan. In particular, we have representation from both the College of Pharmacy and Nutrition and the College of Health and Epidemiology in the College of Medicine. We have partners from the Government of Saskatchewan, with representation from both the Ministry of Parks, Culture and Sport and the Ministry of Health. We have partners from the Saskatchewan Recreation Association and some public health nutritionists with the Saskatchewan Health Authority, as well as a representative from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So on behalf of the partners and as one of the current co-chairs of the committee, I will be your speaker today. My name is Melanie Warken, and I am a public health nutritionist based out of the Moose Jaw area with the Saskatchewan Health Authority. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure I can mute everybody again. We have new people logged on. So today, we are going to talk a little bit about our committee, where we've been and where we're headed. We're going to draw on the national framework, since it is a national support tool that's available to us. We'll look at the current state of food environments in sport and recreation settings. We'll talk about a little bit about the national movement that's happening across Canada, and then a little bit more about what's happening here in Saskatchewan. And we are excited to share two new resources in a series of three titled Healthy Foods for My Recreation Setting. So one documents the nutrition standards for Saskatchewan, and the second document that we'll look at today briefly is Getting Started. The vision of the Eat Healthy, Play Healthy partnership is to have healthy food environments in Saskatchewan sport and recreation settings where children, youth, and adults are supported to make decisions that will aid in their athletic performance and their overall health and well-being. So we aim to do this by supporting and building capacity in the recreation sector to assess their current physical environments and to make improvements to some of those factors that influence healthy behaviors. So, for example, the types of foods and drinks that are available, how the choices are priced, how they are placed, and how they are also marketed. Okay, sorry, just muting. Just a kind reminder to please mute your lines. So these factors are what make up a food environment, and they can highly influence people to make healthy choices. So by modifying these factors, we can help the healthier choices to be the easier choice for the customer. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few more slides. So our partners began collaborating back in 2016 to look at the concern around the current state of food environments in Saskatchewan, sport and recreation settings, and to also look at that national movement that's happening across Canada. In 2017, we kickstarted our process by conducting a preliminary online survey where we had 49 recreation leaders respond, and those results were used to help inform a more comprehensive data collection process that we conducted in 2018. And in that, we asked Saskatchewan communities to volunteer to participate in telephone interviews, concession, and vending surveys. And in addition to that, we asked the larger cities to participate in food marketing surveys. So we're just wrapping up the analysis of those interviews and surveys right now. And through that, we'll determine our key findings and recommendations for the future moving forward. And then we also began creating some resources in 2018 to support the healthy change. And that's the Healthy Foods for My Recreation series, for my recreation setting series. So through the webinar series, as well as at the 2019 SPRA Fall Conference on October 18th, we plan to share some of those key findings and recommendations from our data collection, as well as more information on the resources that we've developed. So now that we know a little bit about, that you know a little bit about us, we would like to know a little bit about you. So I've gone ahead and put some polling questions into the WebEx application. So I just opened that up. It should be in your chat box if you want to have a look. And this is the first time I'm attempting this, so hopefully it all goes well. If you want to complete the 3 questions, give you a minute to do that. So there should be 3 questions there, just as a reminder to look for them all. Looks like the results are still coming in. Okay, I'm going to close the poll here. And we'll see who is all on the line. Okay, should have shared the results with you. If everything went as planned. So it looks like most of the participants in today's webinar are from health, with a few from sport and recreation, and a few with a no answer. And then our second question was framed around what best describes your role in this area of work. And most people would classify themselves as programmers, practitioners, or educators, 2 policymakers. And then our third question was around how you'd rate your level of readiness to provide healthy food and drinks. And there were lots that said that did not provide an answer, 6 that said mostly ready, a few that are somewhat ready, and a few that are very ready. Okay, excellent. Thank you for completing that. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar, it's important to reflect on some of those national supports that are available. And the Framework for Recreation in Canada, Pathways to Wellbeing, was released in 2015, and it's a guiding document for public recreation providers in Canada. It brings together work being done across the sport, physical activity, recreation, parks, environmental, and health sectors to improve the health of Canadians. So the framework acknowledges that modern lifestyles combined with changes in the social and physical environments have led to an increase in some negative health outcomes, such as sedentary behaviors and chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. So 2 goals that were set to help improve physical health outcomes were Goal 1, to foster active living through physical recreation, and Goal 4, to ensure the provision of supportive physical and social environments so healthy choices are the easier choice for people. So we really see supportive food environments as an important piece of this 4th goal, as they can also influence people's decisions and ultimately their health outcomes. Although existing evidence states that there's multiple challenges with offering healthy food and drinks in sport and recreation settings, we need to really look at these challenges as opportunities for some healthy, positive change. When we look at the many positive health outcomes associated with good nutrition, which we get primarily through our food and drinks, like better overall health, improved athletic performance, lower disease risk, more vitality, stronger muscles and bones, and more energy, how can we not? So some of you might be asking why we're looking at sport and recreation settings. They are a common gathering place for people of all ages to be active and to participate in cultural and social experiences. A survey that SPRA conducted in 2017 shows that about 74% of households with children in Saskatchewan report accessing a public rec facility in the last 12 months, making families the largest user group of facilities. Some families even spend several nights a week there, depending on what sport or activity they are in. Municipal-owned facilities are also publicly funded, and ideally public funding should be used to support positive health outcomes of our customers and not negative. Recreation settings provide an important learning opportunity for families and for our community as well. So for example, they really help to build some of our best athletes, and they require adequate nutrition and hydration for that performance. Staff and coaches in these settings are also really pivotal mentors and role models for our youth and children participating in programs. So they're often leading by example. So if we have a supportive physical environment that enables staff and coaches to make those healthy choices for themselves and even to promote it to program participants, it will highly influence the choices that they're making in those settings. And like public sport and recreation settings, our public education settings are also publicly funded and have high volumes of people, especially children. We've worked with the education sector for quite a few years, and so we feel there's also value in working with sport and recreation settings to aim for some consistency with the information between the 2 sectors and what's available in terms of food or the information. And lastly, consumers' interests are changing, and with the rise of obesity and chronic disease rates, more and more are becoming aware of the importance of good nutrition and access to healthy food and drinks that offer that good nutrition no matter what setting they're in. So there is a video developed by Dr. Kim Rain, who's a lead researcher in this area based out of the University of Alberta in Edmonton. And she helped to create this video, 4-minute video, that talks about how food environments influence our behaviors and kind of that current state situation with school and sport recreation settings. So due to time today, we're not going to watch it, but I do encourage you to check it out after this webinar at the link provided at the bottom of the slide. So it's good to come back to that term food environments and talk a little bit more about that before we move forward. So the term food environment goes beyond what we know. It goes beyond our knowledge. It looks at the factors in our physical environment, in the places where we spend a lot of our time, so in those places where we live, learn, work, play, and even rest, and how the factors in those environments influence our food and drink decisions. So like we discussed, it might look at the types of foods available, how they're placed, how they're priced, and how they're marketed in those different environments where we spend our time. So we do tend to have food all around us at any one time, and our access is quite abundant. So we can no longer say it's just one treat, because we are surrounded by food in different environments depending where we are. And those abundant choices can often be the less healthy choice. So what we tend to eat, what is around us. So I'd like for you to take a moment just to think about the environment you're in right now and look around. Ask yourself where you can access food and drinks, first of all. What types of food and drinks are available to you right now? Would you describe them as healthy? Where are they placed? How are they placed? Are they accessible to you? How are they priced, if they're priced at all? And is there any particular marketing on the products or on the walls around you that's promoting a certain product or a certain company? So those are all the factors that will influence our food choices. So taking that specifically to the sport and recreation environment, think about your favorite sport or recreation facility and ask yourself some of those same questions. Where can you access food and drinks? What types are available to you? How would you describe them? How are they priced? How are they placed? And is there any marketing around you? So sometimes it's also difficult to think about all the foods that are available to you when you're put on the spot like that. So I like this one graphic that was developed by a team of researchers from BC and Alberta, and it looks at the various ways foods and drinks can be offered in sport and recreation settings. So they're commonly available through food services like concessions, cafeterias, catering. Vending machines are quite common in these settings. Food is sometimes offered at cost or at no cost for free through programs to children, youth, adults, or seniors. Food can often be a source of fundraising for programs or facilities as well. Staff, there's often staff that operate the facilities that work in those places and have access to food, whether it be through those food services or through meetings, trainings, sessions. Events are often held in rec and sport settings, and there's also tends to be posters, flyers and claims, newsletters, those sorts of materials where food can often be part of. So we can, by providing healthy food and drinks choices in each of these areas, it's an important way that we can support the health, wellness, and performance of our customers in these facilities. So we are actually one of the provinces to jump on board a little bit later. There's been a much larger national movement happening across Canada, starting with BC and Alberta, Ontario, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Prince Edward Island is also looking at strategies. So we are one of many. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to also look at some more supports nationally. One website that has been developed with the help of BC is a website called Stay Active, Eat Healthy, and it houses a wide range of information produced by each of the different provinces and territories in Canada, whoever's sort of working in this area. So I encourage you to check out that website as well. We've also been putting together more of a Saskatchewan-specific website with the help of SPRA, which I'll go through shortly. Before that, I just wanted to mention that there are a lot of common approaches between the provinces and territories. So they've all looked at taking an approach through partnership and building capacity in recreation leaders to help lead some change. So we are looking at that here in Saskatchewan. They've all taken a research approach, so trying to collect some form of data to help kickstart their momentum in their areas. They've looked at developing policies and guidelines to help inform change and support change, to provide nutritional guidance to the people wanting to make changes in facilities. And then resource development to support change is also a common approach taken across Canada. So we've really tried to incorporate some of those key aspects into the work here in Saskatchewan. So like other provinces and territories, we are taking that partnership approach and capacity building approach, as many people have a role in creating supportive food environments for our customers and staff in these facilities. So for example, provincial ministries are often a linkage to national bodies that help to support provincial and territorial strategies, which can often generate more support for provinces. And they often work on policy or guideline type development, which can help to support the sustainability of change. Municipalities can help support healthy changes through the implementation of policies and guidelines at a municipal level. So one example is they can adapt their requests for proposals or their contract agreements to include requirements where vendors must offer a certain percentage of healthy choices. Recreation practitioners and operators can also help support healthy change by increasing the availability of healthy choices, as well as looking at some of those strategies around pricing, placement, and marketing to help the healthy choices sell. And then even staffing, coaches, and volunteers also all play an important role in communicating and promoting these changes to the public. So consumers are also an important part of this process, and we definitely heard that through the interviews that we conducted, is that we need to be engaging consumers and customers in this process. There is some evidence that their preferences are changing, and that will definitely help to drive the change towards having healthier food environments. So in terms of the evidence, SPRA conducted a survey to their members in 2018, and 79% of those agreed or strongly agreed that facilities should offer healthier options, and only 3% somewhat or strongly disagreed. So from those results, they set a priority for action to work with the Saskatchewan sport and recreation facilities to ensure that customers have access to healthy food choices. I also mentioned earlier that we conducted some telephone interviews with recreation leaders and food service providers, and that was back in 2018. So we had 17 people from 16 communities participate in telephone interviews, and about 45 facilities participated in the concession and vending surveys. One of the themes that arose from the telephone interviews was the need for some support, some strategy and direction. So here's some quotes that I pulled from the data. It's hugely difficult actually, and you don't really stop to think about it until something like this comes out. So through this process, we are building a lot of awareness. So I think that's a really positive step forward. There's nothing that guides me as a director. We don't have enough knowledge or resources coming from you guys or from the health region. Like any of that would help in directing us and making better choices. So that definitely tells us that some direction, some help, and some support resources are needed. And then lastly, I do think this is so valuable, and I just want to thank you guys for reaching out to communities and offering some help. Another reoccurring thing that came out of the telephone interviews was a need for nutrition guidance. One being, I'm not a nutritionist, I don't know the best guideline to follow or what to offer or how to offer it. We'd be curious to know what professionals are saying healthy choices are. I feel like we are just kind of winging it. So having something like standards and resources with what we could offer or things like that would be really helpful. So we are definitely on the right track. We actually began developing some resources back to provide that nutritional guidance to the rec sector back in 2018. And based on what they were, based on what was happening more nationally. So these findings just really help to affirm that we are heading in the right direction. And we're happy to be here today sharing two of those new resources. So to support consistency between the school and recreation sectors, we actually adapted the school nutrition standards, which are called Healthy Foods for My School, and we've adapted them to be Healthy Foods for My Recreation setting. So this is the first of three resources that we are developing, the nutrition standards are, and we also made some updates to them in the process of adapting them, and we tailored the examples that are included in the standards to be more suitable for a sport and recreation environment. The second tool we created, it's called Getting Started, and we will look at that quickly today. And then the third resource that is in development or currently being desktoped is called A Step-by-Step Guide. And it's going to be more about the implementation of change, more practical discussions. And as these resources become available, as they're ready for sharing, we'll be posting them online at SPRA's website at that link provided on your slide. So let's take a closer look now at the nutrition standards document. That's the first tool mentioned. So this tool can be used by people in recreation settings who serve, sell, and promote food, or people that have influence over those decisions. They can be used to determine foods of higher nutritional value to offer in sport and recreation settings. So the nutrition standards divide foods into these 5 categories: vegetables and fruit, grain products, meat and alternatives, milk and alternatives, and then meat and alternatives, and mixed dishes, which we'll review each of them shortly. So as you may notice, the first 4 categories and the language of those mirror the old food guide. And when we began adapting these guidelines, the old food guide was still in effect, and it has since been revised. So we just want to acknowledge that, yes, the food guide's been revised, and we will likely need to revise the standards to reflect current recommendations in the future. However, in the meantime, this is still a great tool to use to help determine foods of higher nutritional value. And updating all of our nutrition guidance will take some time, so it will be a process. So vegetables and fruit is the first category, and it's found on page 3 in case you are looking at the actual standards document. A food belongs in this category if the first ingredient is a vegetable or fruit and sugar is not the first ingredient. So sugar can come in many forms, such as honey, molasses, fruit juice, fruit juice concentrate, and fruit puree concentrate. So many offer most often foods like fresh vegetables and fruit will not have a food label. So as the saying goes, fresh is often best. So if there's no food label, it's likely an offer most often type of food, fruit and vegetable, which we'll get at what that means shortly. It is mandatory for packaged food products to have a food label. So a food label includes both an ingredient list and a nutrition facts table, which we'll also look at soon here. So if a fruit or vegetable has sugar or sugar substitute added, it would likely should have a food label. So in vegetables and fruit, we tend to want to see little to no added fat, sodium, or sugar, which are reflected in our nutrition standards for this category. We've also included some possible examples under each standard in this category, which can help guide you quickly if you do not have access or time to compare a food label to the criteria. So grain products is grain products is the second category found on page 4. And I can hear somebody. I'm just going to make sure everybody's muted here. Just a reminder to mute your line if you can. Okay. So a food belongs to this category if the first ingredient is a whole grain, enriched wheat flour, or rice. So in grains, we tend to want to see more fiber and less sugar or sodium, which are reflected in the nutrition standards for grain products. You can check out page 4 for more information. Milk and alternatives are the third category, and they're on page 5 of the standards document. So a food or drink belongs here if the first ingredient is a milk or a milk product, not including cream, or water is the first ingredient and the second ingredient is soy. So milk and alternatives are a key source of calcium and vitamin D. It's also a food category that can provide high amounts of saturated fat and added sugar, like ice cream and novelties and flavored milks. So the nutrition standards for this category consider all those nutrients in deciding where it fits in the standard. So meat and alternatives are the fourth category, and they're on page 6 of the standards document. Food belongs here if the first ingredient is listed is a meat, fish, shellfish, poultry, egg, legume, nut, seed, tofu, or soy. The key nutrients that we are concerned with for this category, which are reflected in the criteria, besides fat, sodium, and sugar, is protein. And then lastly, but not least, mixed dishes is the fifth category on page 7 of the standards document. So a mixed dish belongs here if it is prepared and packaged with a food label. So I'm going to stop there for a second. And if you're making a recipe from scratch, so say you're making a beef barley soup, you'd want to go back to those first 4 categories to help judge each of the ingredients separately. So you'd go to meat and alternatives for the beef, and you'd go to grain products for the barley. So a food label, again, will include an ingredient list and nutrition facts table. So that's an important part of using this mixed dishes category. So going back to the definition, the second bullet, it belongs here if it contains a significant amount of food from at least 2 of the 4 food groups. So you need to decide whether there are a significant amount of at least 2 food groups in order for it to be a mixed dish. This part can be a bit subjective, which is why the possible examples listed under each of the standards can be helpful as well. So for example, if you have a package of lemon flavored tuna, the amount of lemon zest in the flavored tuna isn't going to be a significant source of fruit. So if it was just tuna, you would actually go to the meat and alternatives group to assess it. Now, if it's a tuna cracker package, then you would want to use the mixed dishes category to assess it. So to sum it up, this 5th category is really for mixed foods with a food label. Each of these 5 categories have their own nutrition standards because there are different nutrients of concern in each of those categories, like I tried to mention. So once you determine which category the food fits into, then you'll go to the specific set of criteria to assess whether it would be an offer most often, offer sometimes, or offer least often type of food. So often, most often, tend to contain a variety of nutrients, and then they also tend to be generally lower in fat, sugar, salt, and higher in fiber than offer sometimes foods. Offer sometimes foods are often processed. They have some nutrients, but they're generally higher in fat, sugar, salt, and lower in fiber than offer most often foods. And then offer least often foods tend to have few nutrients, and they tend to be highly processed. So they tend to be higher in fat, sugar, salt, and then also lower in fiber than offer most often and offer sometimes foods. So we're going to practice with our first product, which is vanilla yogurt. So I've included, just for ease, a nutrition facts table here and also the ingredient list for this product. So our first step is to determine which category or which food group this yogurt product belongs to. So to determine that, we first need to look at the ingredient list on the packaging. Ingredients are always listed in order of weight from most to least. So in terms of proportion of ingredients in this yogurt, it is mostly made up of partly skimmed milk, and then smaller amounts of vanilla flavored syrup, which is a form of sugar, and then additional amounts of sugar, milk, protein, and bacterial cultures. So the first or second ingredients listed will give you, as the reader, an idea of where this food needs to fit. So with partly skimmed milk being the first ingredient in this product, we can now decide which category it falls into. So because everyone's muted, I'm going to give you the answer, and it fits into the milk and alternatives group because partly skimmed milk is that first ingredient. So there's the definition for milk and alternatives. I just pasted it into the slide. So the food belongs in the milk and alternatives category if the first ingredient is a milk or a milk product, not including cream. So therefore, it fits. Okay. So now we need to compare the nutrition facts table to the standard in our guidelines. Okay, so let's start from the top and work to the bottom to determine where it fits. So we'll start with the offer most often criteria. So to meet the offer most often standard, the food needs to have no added sugar. So we have to ask ourselves, does this product have added sugar? So if we go back to our ingredient list, we can see that vanilla flavored syrup is the second ingredient, which includes sugar. And then there's additional sugar on top of that. So therefore, we can determine that this is not an offer most often type of yogurt or milk and alternative product. So if this would have been a plain yogurt where there's no added sugar, it would likely fall into, or no added sugar or no added sugar added, substitute, then it would have likely fallen into the offer most often category. So then we work our way down and ask ourselves, does it meet the offer sometimes food standard? So if it doesn't meet either the offer most often or offer sometimes criteria, it is automatically considered to be an offer least often food. Okay, so we'll look at the criteria that are outlined in the milk and alternatives offer sometimes and see if it matches the nutrition facts table. So first criteria to look at is fat, 10 grams or less of total fat, and then 0.5 grams or less of trans fat. So it meets that criteria. Secondly, we look at sodium, 350 milligrams or less, and there's 80 milligrams. So yes, it meets that criteria. And then sugars, 25 grams or less, and this has 18. So yes, again, it meets that criteria. Calcium, 10% DV or more. And if you look to the far right, it's a 25% DV. So yes, again, it meets the criteria. So we can therefore assume that this is more of a offer sometimes type of yogurt product. So we'll do another example. This one's a little bit harder. This is a mixed dish product. So this is called Mexican chicken tortilla soup. And again, I've included the ingredient list and the nutrition facts table there for ease of analyzing the rest of the product today. Okay, so our first question again is, which food group does this soup belong to? And I've already given it away that it's a mixed dish. to determine that, we need to look at the ingredient list. And usually the first few ingredients will tell us whether this is actually a mixed dish or not. So here, their first ingredient's water, second ingredient, tomato puree, third ingredient, pinto beans, fourth ingredient, brown rice. So those are all foods that has a significant amount of two different food groups in it. So therefore, we know that it does fit into dish category. Okay, so now we'll start from the top to the bottom again to determine whether it's an offer most often, offer sometimes, or offer least often mixed dish. So we'll first look at the offer most often criteria. And the first set of criteria there is for fat, 10 grams or less. And then there's also saturated and trans fat to consider. So let's look over to our nutrition facts table. And we have 2 grams of fat. So yes, it meets the criteria. Oh, sorry, the saturated and trans also meet the criteria. Sodium, 700 milligrams or less. And yes, this is 410, so great, it meets the criteria. Sugars, it states not the first or second ingredient. So for that one, you have to go down to your ingredient list. And as you can see, there's no, sugar is not the first or second ingredient, so that works. And then fiber, 2 grams or more. Yes, there's 3 grams, so we're good there. And then the criteria to be careful here, it says fiber and calcium, iron, or potassium. So it has to have both of those. So for some of the micronutrients, it has to have at least one nutrient at 10% DV or more. So let's look over at our calcium, 4%. So it does not meet that, and then iron's 8. So neither the calcium or iron meet those criteria. So I'm going to stop for a minute and just mention some changes that are happening with our labeling system in Canada. In these standards, we chose to go with some new labeling requirements. So as you can see, we've listed potassium on our standards, even though you don't see it on many labels yet on food products. That is coming. As of 2021, food manufacturers no longer have to label vitamin A and vitamin C, but they will have to label calcium, iron, and potassium. So those are more nutrients of concern in today's world, so they're just updating the labeling requirements. So even though you see potassium on our criteria, if you don't see it on a food label yet, you will by 2021. Okay, so based on the micronutrients, they're not high enough, so this product is not an offer most often food. So then we go to the next set of criteria, or offer sometimes, and ask us some of those same questions. So we'll look again at the fat. Because it met the offer most often, we know that the fat, the sodium, the sugars are all going to be good, the fiber is going to be good. What we need to look at is those micronutrients. And here, it actually says fiber or calcium, iron, or potassium. So it already meets the fiber. It doesn't have to be an offer sometimes, it doesn't have to meet those micronutrients. So yes, this is an offer sometimes mixed dish. So that's just a little glance at using the nutrition standards. It does take some time and practice with reading nutrition facts tables and ingredient lists and just comparing them. And to make it easier for people, if you don't have the time to do that, you can go to some of those possible examples that are listed under each as a quick guide as to where certain foods might fit. We also wanted to create more of a quick, practical reference tool with some more of those ideas. So we created this 2-page document called Getting Started. And we So this two-page resource really includes quick tips and tricks to start improving the nutritional quality of foods and drinks offered in your setting. And that can make a big difference for your staff members who regularly eat in your facility or purchase food in your facility, or a customer. So it includes some very more general ideas in terms of how to improve, how to start making some of those changes. So some of the categories we've included are tips to modifying existing menu items, for example, how to make your rink burger better, ideas around adding new tasty meal ideas, adding healthy, or low prep snacks, no prep or low prep snacks, pricing foods wisely to sell, so to help the healthier choices sell, and then promoting the healthier choices to sell and focusing on healthier drinks. So I encourage you to check out that second resource, which is also available on SPRA's website. So I wanted to include a few success stories that were in our interview data as well. I think some areas are able and have been successful in making some changes, which is really great to highlight. So one interviewee or participant said, "I can see it coming. I know I've had wraps in the concession since 2005, and the last year we sold a significant amount to date, and this year's even better than last year." So I think people are becoming more aware of it. Another participant said, "For different tournaments and stuff, I had made energy balls and they flew off." And then she said she'll make little homemade cups of cut up veggies with a little bit of dip in the bottom, just grab and go. And so those are some successful ideas that have been, implemented and have been successful. So I'm just going to wrap up our webinar today to just promote the next two parts of our webinar series. So again, that's on November 13th, and it'll be about 1 hour. In that webinar, we want to introduce the third resource, that's our aim, the step-by-step guide. And that guide provides a wide range of practical information and tools to support healthy change. In the webinar, we're going to walk through sections of it and answer some more sort of practical common concerns that we've heard through the interviews in Saskatchewan. And then in part 3 is December 11th, we're going to look more specifically at food marketing, the prevalence of it in sport and recreation settings, what's happening in Canada to protect kids from unhealthy marketing, and then we'll look at ways that people can identify food marketing in your setting and how to reduce the presence of it. We've also developed a series of nutrition posters, which SPRA has helped to fund the professional desktopping of and the printing of. So if you are interested in some posters, you can contact us. I'll provide you with some email addresses in the next slide. You can let us know if you would like some. They come in 2 different sizes, 8 by 11 or a larger size, 11 by 14, I believe. And you're welcome to post those up in sport and recreation settings, but it can also be applicable to other community type settings. And there's our website address to Eat Healthy, Play Healthy on SPRA's website, where we're housing a lot of our resources. And then again, I just wanted to mention the national Stay Active Eat Healthy.ca website, which also houses a lot of support resources. So if you have questions after today, we'll pause for a Q&A type period, but you can also, we have about, let me check the time here, we have about 10 minutes left. So if we don't get to your questions, please, Catherine is going to actually document them, so we'll keep them handy and we'll make sure that we can answer them in the next few webinars that are yet to come. Or if you want to email us your questions, you're welcome to. You can email me at eathealthyplayhealthy@usas.ca. You can also reach out to your local public health office for some additional support, and you can find the locations and contacts for those at saskatchewan.ca. And then also we have our new nutrition call center called Eat Well Saskatchewan, and Carrie is helping with that, and she can help to forward any concerns to the appropriate people for support as well. And that completes the presentation part of our webinar. So I'm just going to unmute Catherine here, as well as our advisory committee members that are on the line. And so Catherine, if you don't mind, actually, we'll start with the questions and then we'll end the webinar with our thank yous. Catherine, if you don't mind posing any of the questions, and I'll just unmute everybody else here.
Okay, so I don't see any questions posted yet, so everyone feel free to type in your question at the bottom of the chat box there. And if you're wondering how to open your chat box, you click on the little arrow to the left next to chat, and that will open up your chat window there, and the box is right at the bottom to type in any questions. So feel free to go for it and type in those questions.
I hope everybody is able to hear me.
Yeah, so far no questions. So maybe you did an excellent job, Melanie, and you're very clear.
Okay, well, we're probably going to lose people if there are no questions. I'll just, in the meantime, if you're typing away, please type away. But in the meantime, I just want to thank Catherine for helping to facilitate the chat box content and questions. And thanks to all of our other Eat Healthy, Play Healthy partners involved. We couldn't have done it without that partnership type support and energy in terms of getting where we are today. And then I'd like to thank everybody for participating today and just helping to build awareness and support change to support the wellness of our people. So once the recording from today is available, the link, we do also hope to have it posted on SPRA's website so you can listen to it again if you like, or share it with other people, as well as with the slide deck. So please feel free to share that or contact us with any questions you might have. It doesn't look like there's any other questions, Catherine, still?
No, I don't think so.
You guys are an easy crowd today. Okay,